I pressed my forehead against the cool glass of my apartment window, watching the city lights flicker across downtown Phoenix. At 28, I had just signed the closing papers on my first house, a real home with a backyard, 3 bedrooms, and a mortgage entirely in my name. The keys felt heavy in my pocket, their metal edges pressing through the fabric of my jeans, a constant reminder that I had actually done it. My phone buzzed. I glanced down, expecting congratulations from my coworker Patricia, who had followed my house hunting journey for 6 months. Instead, my mother's name lit up the screen. I hesitated before answering. Our conversations had grown increasingly tense over the past year, ever since my younger sister Vanessa dropped out of college for the 3rd time. "Hello, Rona. Your father and I need to talk to you. Can you come by the house tomorrow evening?" Her tone carried the clipped edge she used for ultimatums. I shifted my weight, still gazing at the skyline. "I'm actually pretty busy tomorrow. I'm moving into my new place, remember? I told you about it last month." Silence stretched between us. Then she said, "You went through with that." "Rona, we discussed this. You should have waited." My fingers tightened around the phone. We hadn't discussed anything. She had given her opinion that I should keep renting and help Vanessa fund another attempt at college. I had smiled, nodded, and continued with my own plans, as I had done since I was 15. "I've been saving for this for years, Mom. The timing was right. Your sister needs support right now. She's going through a difficult transition." Vanessa was always in transition. By 24, she had cycled through 4 career paths, accumulated significant credit card debt, and moved back in with our parents twice. Each time, they had bailed her out, smoothed over her mistakes, and insisted she just needed to find her passion. Meanwhile, I had worked 2 jobs through high school, put myself through community college while working full-time at a medical supply warehouse, and climbed to a logistics coordinator position that finally allowed me to save aggressively. I had eaten ramen more nights than I could count, skipped vacations, driven a car older than me, and watched my savings grow with near-religious devotion. "Mom, I have to go. I'll call later this week." I ended the call before she could protest. Outside, a plane descended toward the airport, its lights blinking in rhythm. I thought of the house waiting for me across town, the one I had toured 7 times before making an offer. It had good bones, the inspector said, and a roof only 5 years old. The neighborhood was quiet, filled with young families and retirees who actually maintained their yards. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Vanessa. "Heard you bought a house. Must be nice having everything handed to you." I stared at the message until the screen went dark. Everything handed to me? I had started working at a fast food restaurant at 15, lying about school activities to pick up shifts. At 16, I added weekend shifts at a grocery store. I missed prom because of double shifts and skipped my graduation party to save money for a dress. Vanessa had a car at 16. I bought mine at 19 with 2 years of saved money. She went to the state university with tuition, room, and board covered. I worked 40 hours a week while attending community college, finishing my associate degree in 3 years instead of 2 because I could only afford part-time enrollment. But yes, everything had been handed to me. I didn't reply to her message. Instead, I opened the photos of the house I'd taken on my phone. The living room had large windows that let in the afternoon sunlight. The kitchen could use some updates, but the appliances were functional. The backyard featured a small patio, perfect for a table and chairs. It was mine, completely mine. The next evening, I loaded boxes from my apartment into a rented truck. Patricia arrived with coffee and helped me wrap dishes in newspaper. "Are your parents coming to help?" she asked as she taped up a box labeled bedroom closet. "I didn't ask them," I replied. She gave me a knowing look but didn't press further. At 43, having experienced 2 divorces, Patricia understood family dynamics without needing detailed explanations. By 8 p.m., the truck was fully loaded. My apartment looked unfamiliar, stripped of furniture, leaving only carpet impressions from the couch and nail holes from picture frames. I had lived there for 4 years, carefully watching my savings grow while peers spent on trips and new cars. Every financial choice had been intentional, focused on one goal. Patricia drove the truck while I followed in my car. The house was in Desert Bloom, about 20 minutes from my apartment and 30 minutes from my warehouse job. The streets were lined with mature mesquite trees, and the houses featured desert landscaping with rock gardens and native plants. My home was a pale yellow ranch with dark brown trim, built in 1987 but well kept by the previous owners. I unlocked the front door and stepped inside. A faint scent of vanilla from the previous owner's candles lingered. The living room stretched out empty, echoing my footsteps on the tile floor. "It has good energy," Patricia said, walking through the space with her coffee. "I can see you being happy here." We unloaded the truck in stages, taking breaks to drink water and rest. By midnight, all my boxes were in their rooms, and the furniture arranged in approximate positions. Patricia left around 12:30 a.m., making me promise to text her when I woke up so she'd know I was safe. I stood in the center of the living room afterward. The house creaked softly as it settled, and I realized I had done this without help, without family loans, without shortcuts. I had worked, saved, and sacrificed, and now the property was officially mine. At 7 a.m., my phone rang, jolting me awake on the air mattress I'd set up in the master bedroom. My mother's name appeared on the screen. "Rona, we need you at the house today." "This is important," I rubbed my eyes. "What's going on?" "Just come over. Your father and I need to discuss something and bring your house purchase paperwork." There was something in her tone that made my stomach tighten. "What paperwork?" I asked. "The deed, the mortgage documents, everything. Bring it all." She hung up before I could ask more. I lay on the air mattress, staring at the ceiling fan slowly turning above me. The house was quiet except for the refrigerator hum and a dog barking in the distance. That afternoon, I drove to my parents' home in Scottsdale. Their neighborhood was a planned community, complete with HOA rules regulating mailbox colors and lawn maintenance. Their house was a 2-story Southwestern style with a 3-car garage and a backyard pool. My father had retired early from pharmaceutical sales, and my mother managed a boutique part-time, more for social engagement than income. Vanessa's car was, of course, in the driveway. I grabbed the folder containing my house documents from the passenger seat and walked to the front door. My mother opened it before I could knock. "Come in." "We're in the living room." My father sat in his leather recliner, reading glasses perched on his nose. Studying something on his tablet, Vanessa lounged on the couch, her expression a mix of smugness and self-satisfaction. I felt the first flicker of real unease. "Sit down, Rona," my mother urged, gesturing toward the love seat. "We need to discuss your recent purchase." I stayed standing. "My house? What about it?" My father put down his tablet. "Your mother and I have talked about your situation, and we believe you made this purchase without fully considering the family's needs." "The family's needs?" I repeated slowly. "It's my house. I bought it with my money." "Money you earned while living under our roof for 18 years? My mother interjected. "We provided for you, gave you a foundation. You owe us some consideration." I glanced at Vanessa, who was examining her fingernails with deliberate disinterest. Slowly, pieces began to click together. "What is this really about?" I asked. My father cleared his throat. "Your sister needs stability right now. She's been looking for a place to live, somewhere affordable, so she can focus on her future. We think your house could be ideal for her." The room seemed to tilt. "You want Vanessa to live in my house?" "You bought a 3-bedroom, my mother said. "It's far too much space for one person. Vanessa could live there, pay minimal rent until she's on her feet. It's financially sensible." I laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound that made all 3 of them flinch. "You want me to give the house I saved for over 13 years to Vanessa?" "Not give, share," my father corrected. "Be a family," I felt my voice rise. I worked at a fast food restaurant until my hands permanently smelled of fryer grease. I did overnight shifts at a warehouse. I ate boxed macaroni for dinner 4 nights a week. And now you expect me to hand over my house to Vanessa, who's never held a job for more than 6 months? Vanessa finally looked up. "See, that's exactly your problem. You think you're better than me because you're willing to be miserable." Her words hung in the air. I stared at her, at the designer purse beside her on the couch, an item I knew my parents had bought her last month, and at her freshly manicured nails, something I could never afford. "Willing to be miserable?" I echoed. "Is that what you think hard work is?" "You act like being responsible is a virtue," Vanessa said, sitting up straighter. "Meanwhile, you have no social life, no relationships, no friends except that woman from work. You just save money and judge everyone else." "Girls, that's enough," my mother interjected. "Rona, we're not asking you to give Vanessa the house. We're asking you to share it. Let her live there for a while." Help her get established. She's your sister, I turned to my mother. When I needed help with college tuition, you told me to take out loans. When I needed a car, you told me to save. But Vanessa gets everything handed to her, and I'm supposed to accept that. We did what we thought was best for you, my father said. You were always independent. You didn't need as much support. Or maybe you just didn't want it because it was easier to struggle on your own. The silence that followed carried years of unspoken resentment. I had always been the capable one, the one who figured things out alone. Vanessa had always needed guidance and financial help. And now, I was the villain for refusing to perpetuate that dynamic. Here's what will happen, my mother said, her voice firm as it had been throughout my childhood. You'll let Vanessa move into your house. She'll pay $300 a month, which is fair given the circumstances. I stared at her. $300? My mortgage alone was $1,500, not including utilities, insurance, and taxes. You'll cover the rest, my mother added. Consider it an investment in her future. Something crystallized inside me. A lifetime of swallowed disappointment, of being called selfish for wanting recognition, of watching Vanessa receive opportunities I was denied, all while being lectured about family duty. A cold certainty took hold. No, I said. My father frowned. Rona, be reasonable. I am being reasonable, I replied firmly. The answer is no. Vanessa is not moving into my house. Not for $300 a month. Not for any amount. It's my house. My mother's expression hardened. You're being incredibly selfish after everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? I asked, genuinely curious. Please, list it. The question seemed to catch her off guard. She hesitated before responding. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, gave you a home. Basic parental responsibilities. What more do you want? This is absurd, Vanessa said, standing abruptly. You know what? Keep your house. I hope you enjoy living alone, bitter over your miserable life. She stormed out, and I heard her car start in the driveway moments later. My parents looked at me with matching expressions of disappointment and anger. You're making a mistake, my father said quietly. Family is meant to support one another. Family supports accomplishments, not tears them down out of jealousy or entitlement, I replied. I left before they could respond. Hands slightly trembling, I sat in my car in their driveway for a long moment, watching the sun set behind their immaculate house, with its manicured lawn and flawless interior, never having experienced struggle. Then I drove home to my own house, imperfect, in need of updates, but entirely mine. I spent the next week unpacking boxes and arranging furniture. Patricia came over twice to help, and we assembled a bookshelf from a flat-pack store while sipping wine and complaining about the confusing instructions. Work went on as usual. I coordinated shipments, managed inventory databases, and solved logistical challenges to ensure pharmaceutical supplies reached hospitals across the Southwest. My parents didn't call. Neither did Vanessa. The silence felt like a Cold War, but I realized I didn't miss the constant criticism or manipulation. I woke each morning in my house, made coffee in my kitchen, and headed to work from my own address. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, while reorganizing the warehouse receiving bay, I received a notification from the county court system. My heart sank before I opened it. My parents had filed a lawsuit against me. They claimed to have provided significant financial support over my life, with the expectation that I would assist family members in need. They sought either partial ownership of my house or financial compensation equivalent to 20 years of child-rearing costs. I read the document 3 times in the warehouse parking lot. It itemized their investment in raising me, food, clothing, housing, education, and alleged I had entered an implied contract by accepting their support. Now they claimed restitution through ownership of my property. It was absurd, yet it was very real, with a court date set in 6 weeks. I called the only lawyer I knew, Beth, who occasionally came to the warehouse to pick up supplies for her father's medical equipment. She listened, asked me to email the court documents, and called back an hour later. This is one of the more creative attempts at legal manipulation I've seen, she said. But it's not unprecedented. Some parents have tried claiming implied contracts with adult children. Most are dismissed, but not all. My stomach sank. So they could win? Unlikely. But in family court, nothing is guaranteed. Do you have documentation of your earnings and savings? She asked. Everything. Bank statements, pay stubs, tax returns. I've kept it all. Good, start creating a timeline. Every job, every dollar saved. We need to show beyond doubt that you bought this house entirely with your own funds and labor. For the next 2 weeks, I built my case. Every evening, I sat at my kitchen table with file folders spread out, documenting 13 years of financial independence. Bank statements from my first account opened at 16 with $200 from a month of flipping burgers. Pay stubs from my grocery store job, tax returns showing consistent employment since I was legally able to file. Beth reviewed everything with methodical precision. She was in her late 30s with keen eyes and an equally sharp understanding of family law. Her office, located in a modest downtown building, was adorned with photographs of her 3 children and framed court documents highlighting cases she had won. "Your documentation is thorough," she remarked during our 3rd meeting. "But there's something important you need to grasp. Family court judges have broad discretion. They can weigh factors beyond strict legal precedent. The emotional arguments your parents might present could influence a judge who values family obligations over individual accomplishments." I gripped the chair's arms. So even though I had earned every cent, I might be forced to share my house or provide financial compensation to my sister, not necessarily lose it entirely, but potentially compromise ownership. It all depended on how the judge interpreted implied family responsibilities. She leaned back. "Tell me about your relationship with your parents, not just recent events, but the full history." For the next hour, I recounted my experiences. I spoke about working 2 jobs in high school while Vanessa received an allowance. I explained how my parents funded Vanessa's university education while I relied on loans for community college. I described every birthday where Vanessa received lavish gifts while I got practical gift cards. I detailed the long-standing pattern of favoritism and expectations that defined our family dynamics. Beth took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she put down her pen and looked directly at me. "Here's what I see. Your parents consistently treated your sister differently, offering her more financial support while expecting you to be self-reliant. Now, they are retroactively claiming you owe them for basic parenting expenses. It's manipulative, and frankly, it's infuriating. Can we win? We can build a strong case, but the final ruling depends on factors beyond our control." She pulled out a legal pad. "We need witness testimony. People who can speak to your work history, financial independence, and lack of parental support." Who could we call? I considered it. Patricia, my former grocery store manager. Dennis, who wrote my college recommendation, a community college professor who helped with financial aid, and my current warehouse supervisor, Judith, who respected my work ethic despite her strict demeanor. Beth continued, "We also need to think about your sister. Will she testify for your parents?" "Absolutely," I said. "Then we must prepare for her narrative. They might present Vanessa as struggling while you selfishly hoard resources. You'll be portrayed as the privileged sister refusing to help family in need." I laughed bitterly. "Privileged? I worked 80-hour weeks." "Perception matters in court," Beth said. "We need to manage the narrative." She made more notes. "Document every instance of your parents financially supporting Vanessa over the last 5 years. Car payments, credit cards, rent. Can you do that?" "I can try." Vanessa posts everything on social media. New purses, weekend trips, dinners. I can probably create a timeline. "Do it," Beth said. Then her expression softened slightly. "Prepare yourself emotionally. Family court can get harsh. Your parents may testify about your perceived difficulties, and your sister may frame herself as a victim. Be ready for that." I nodded, though my hands shook as I left her office. That evening, I sat in my living room with my laptop, reviewing Vanessa's social media posts from the past 5 years. Designer handbags, weekend trips to San Diego and Las Vegas, pricey brunches, concert tickets, seasonal wardrobe updates, all documented with captions about struggle, self-discovery, and being misunderstood by family. The contrast was staggering. I created a spreadsheet with dates, items, and estimated retail costs. By the time I finished, I had tracked roughly $60,000 in parental support for Vanessa over 5 years. Meanwhile, my parents had provided me nothing, not for birthdays, holidays, or emergencies. The court date arrived. I took the day off work, dressing in my most professional outfit, black slacks, a navy blazer, and simple flats. Beth met me outside the courthouse at 8:30 a.m. "Remember," she said as we passed through the metal detectors, "stay calm. Answer questions directly and honestly. Don't let them provoke emotional reactions. The facts are on your side." The courtroom was smaller than I had pictured, with wood-paneled walls and harsh fluorescent lighting that gave the room a slightly unwell appearance. My parents sat on one side with their attorney, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit. Vanessa sat behind them, wearing a dress that likely cost more than my monthly groceries. The judge, a woman in her early 60s named Judge Morrison, reviewed the case files with a neutral expression as we waited in tense silence. Finally, she looked up. This is a petition for financial compensation or property rights based on parental investment and child rearing. The plaintiffs claim an implied contract. Let's proceed with opening statements. My parents' attorney stood first. His presentation was polished and rehearsed, designed to appeal emotionally. He spoke of sacrifice and duty, of parents who devoted years to raising 2 daughters, and of reasonable expectations of gratitude and reciprocity. He portrayed my parents as wounded and betrayed, their generosity rejected by an ungrateful daughter who refused to support her struggling sister. Then Beth took the floor. Her opening statement was factual and concise. She outlined my work history, financial independence, and the documented differences in parental support between Vanessa and me. She presented the information as a clear timeline of facts, letting the evidence speak for itself. Testimony began with my father. He sat in the witness box, dignified but visibly hurt, the image of a disappointed parent. His attorney guided him through questions about raising 2 daughters and providing opportunities for both. Did you treat both daughters equally? The attorney asked. We treated them according to their needs, my father responded. Rona was always independent and didn't require as much guidance. Vanessa needed more support as she was still finding her path. When Rona purchased a house, we were proud. But we also hoped she would assist her sister, who hadn't had the same advantages. Beth began cross-examination. Mr. Sir, you stated Rona didn't need as much guidance. Did she also receive less financial support? My father shifted. We supported both daughters appropriately. Did you pay for Rona's college education? She chose a community college. We offered to help with university costs if she had applied. But you did fund Vanessa's university education? Full tuition, room, and board? Yes, for 3 separate enrollments as she withdrew twice and re-enrolled. Beth pressed further. Each time she withdrew, did you receive any refund on tuition? No, but that's not relevant. I would argue it is relevant to equal treatment. How much did you spend on Vanessa's education over 6 years? I don't have exact figures. Beth produced a document. According to university records and your financial statements, approximately $120,000. Is that accurate? Approximately, yes. And how much did you contribute to Rona's community college education? Silence filled the room. Finally, my father said, Rona was financially independent. She didn't ask for help because we encouraged her to take loans and be self-sufficient. Did you buy Vanessa a car when she turned 16? We gave her a used car, and Rona? Rona purchased her own car after you advised her to save for one, correct? My father remained silent. Beth let the pause linger before continuing. Over the past 5 years, have you covered any of Vanessa's credit card bills? We have helped her during difficult times. Approximately how much? I don't track every dollar spent on my children. Your bank statements show transfers totaling around $40,000 to Vanessa over 5 years. Does that sound accurate? My father's face flushed. We assist our daughters when needed. How much have you sent to Rona during the same period? Rona has a stable job. She doesn't require financial help. So to summarize, you spent $120,000 on Vanessa's education, which she didn't finish. You've transferred roughly $40,000 for her debts and living expenses over 5 years. You also bought her a vehicle. Meanwhile, you contributed nothing to Rona's education, living costs, or a vehicle, and now you're seeking compensation from her based on your investment in raising her. Is that correct? You are twisting the facts. My father said we raised both daughters and supported them until age 18. Yes, but after that? You substantially supported one daughter while telling the other to be independent. No further questions. Next, my mother testified. Her tone was more emotional, emphasizing a mother's love and the pain of seeing children treated differently. She cried while recounting my refusal to help Vanessa, framing it as abandoning the family when support was needed most. Beth's cross-examination was precise. She highlighted every instance of unequal treatment, every birthday where Vanessa received far more gifts than I did, and every family trip I missed because I was working. Did you offer to contribute to Rona's house down payment? We assumed she had it covered, my mother said. She has always been capable. Did you offer to help Vanessa with living expenses? Vanessa needed help. Why should someone needing help receive more support than someone working to be independent? That's how family works. You help those who are struggling. When Rona worked 2 jobs, ate cheaply, and drove an unreliable car, where was the family support then? My mother had no response. Tears continued, but I felt nothing, only a clear certainty that I was witnessing a performance designed to gain sympathy. Then Vanessa took the stand. She presented herself as a victim, describing life in my shadow, how our parents had been stricter with her because I supposedly set a high standard. Rona, she said, thought she was better than me, judged my choices, and looked down on me for needing support. When Rona bought her house, Vanessa expected some family consideration. What did you expect when Rona bought the house? I thought she might let me stay temporarily until I found stability. But she refused and made harsh remarks about my work history and responsibility, humiliating me in front of our parents. Beth's cross-examination was blunt. How many jobs have you held for more than a year? I've had several, but please answer the question, how many for more than 12 months? I'm not sure, a few. According to your resume, you had 9 jobs in 6 years. The longest was 8 months. Correct? Vanessa's face reddened. Some jobs weren't a good fit. I was finding my path. How much rent do you currently pay? I'm staying with my parents. For how long? About 8 months. Before that, I had an apartment for 6 months but was evicted for non-payment, which my parents then covered. I had financial difficulties. Have you ever consistently paid your own rent for over a year? Living in the city is expensive. Rona managed to cover her rent and now her mortgage. What's the difference? She's willing to sacrifice almost everything for money. Vanessa snapped. Her life is consumed by work. She has no joy, just routines of working, saving, and judging others. Did you ask Rona if you could stay in her home? My parents suggested it would be a good arrangement. Did you offer to pay market rate rent? They suggested $300 a month. The mortgage is $2,500 plus utilities and other costs. You were offering only 20% of the monthly expenses while using 33% of the space. Did you think that was fair? I'm her sister. Family helps family. Did you support Rona when she worked 2 jobs and lived frugally to save money? I was in school. Rona was also in school while working 2 jobs. Did you assist her in any way? Help her study? Cover shifts so she could rest? Contribute to her success? Vanessa's eyes welled with tears. I was managing my own challenges. No further questions, then it was my turn. I walked to the witness stand, feeling as if I were moving through water, slow and surreal. Beth guided me through my testimony carefully, establishing my work history, savings habits, and full financial independence since age 18. Did your parents ever offer to help with college tuition? No, they told me to take out loans if needed. What about a car? No, I had to save and buy one myself. Did they help with a house down payment? No, they only learned I was purchasing a home after the offer was made. How much money have you received from your parents since turning 18? I considered it carefully, about $500 total, a $100 check for my 21st birthday, $100 for my 25th, and $300 in gift cards over various Christmases. During the same period, how much did they provide your sister? Based on social media posts, bank transfers, and direct statements, I estimate around $160,000. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Judge Morrison looked up from her notes. That's a substantial difference, Beth said. Did you ever question why you were treated differently? Many times I was told Vanessa needed more help, and I was capable of managing myself. How did that feel? Like my hard work was overlooked, while struggling and failing was rewarded. The parents' attorney began cross-examination, aiming to depict me as resentful and selfish. Someone who kept score and failed to understand different family needs at different times. Do you love your sister? He asked. I answered honestly, I don't know anymore. I love the idea of having a sister, but not the person Vanessa has become. Someone who expects others to fund her lifestyle while contributing nothing. Who sees my success as a slight against her. That's very harsh. It's honest, I replied. Your parents provided for you for 18 years. Don't you owe them something? They fulfilled their legal obligations. I owe no repayment for their choice to have children, even after their sacrifices. What did they sacrifice? From my perspective, they sacrificed for Vanessa while asking me to sacrifice for myself. He tried multiple angles, but I remained factual, sticking to timelines and documented disparities. When I finally stepped down, I felt exhausted but clear-headed. Beth then called Patricia as a character witness. Patricia spoke about working with me for 5 years, my dedication, work ethic, and the sacrifices I made to save for a house. Did she mention any help from my parents? Never. Her focus was always on what they did for Vanessa. I sensed she had stopped expecting anything from them long ago. Dennis, my former grocery store manager, testified about employing me from 16 to 22. He described a teen who never missed shifts, always accepted extra work, and saved her earnings with determined focus. I offered to promote her to assistant manager when she was 19, but she declined, citing conflicts with her community college schedule. That's the kind of person Rona is. She thinks long-term, makes difficult decisions, and avoids shortcuts. Judith, my current supervisor, testified about my performance at the warehouse. She is not someone to exaggerate, but her objective assessment of my skills and reliability carried significant weight. Rona is the person I call when precision and accountability matter. Judith emphasized that Rona doesn't make excuses, doesn't shift blame, and consistently solves problems, qualities that are rare. The testimonies collectively portrayed a clear picture. A woman who worked tirelessly for 13 years, saved diligently, and achieved her goals through determination alone. Conversely, the other side presented an equally clear story. Parents who had favored one daughter while expecting independence from the other, now attempting to retroactively claim compensation for ordinary parenting responsibilities. Judge Morrison invited closing statements. My parents' attorney delivered an emotional appeal, stressing family obligations and the reasonable expectations of parents after decades of support. Beth responded with facts and timelines, demonstrating that I had purchased my home entirely with my own earnings, while my parents had provided considerably more support to my sister. The plaintiffs alleged an implied contract, but Beth clarified that no such contract existed. Instead, the evidence revealed a pattern of unequal treatment. One daughter was given every advantage, while the other was expected to manage independently. Rona did manage, succeeding through hard work and sacrifice. Now, her parents sought to penalize her success by attempting to subsidize her sister's continued dependence, a claim the court should not uphold. Judge Morrison called a brief recess. We waited in the courtroom for 30 minutes while she reviewed the case documents. I tried to remain calm, counting ceiling tiles, but the thought of losing the home I had worked 13 years to buy was hard to ignore. When she returned, her expression was neutral. "I've reviewed the testimonies and documents," she began. "This case raises questions about family obligations, implied contracts, and whether adult children owe parents compensation for child-rearing expenses." My heart raced. After careful consideration, "I find no legal basis for the plaintiff's claims," she continued, her voice calm and authoritative. The plaintiffs argue that because they provided support during the defendant's childhood, they are entitled to compensation or property rights. However, providing basic necessities for a minor is a legal obligation, not a contract that creates future debt. My mother made a quiet sound of protest, and the judge glanced at her before returning to the documents. The evidence also demonstrates a clear disparity in treatment between the two daughters. The plaintiffs provided roughly $160,000 in support to their younger daughter, Vanessa, after she reached adulthood, compared to approximately $500 to their older daughter, Rona, during the same period. The financial records confirm unequal investments. They cannot claim otherwise, my father's attorney stood. "Your Honor, we are talking about the investment during childhood." "The childhood years are not at issue here," the judge interrupted. "What matters is whether the defendant owes her parents compensation or property rights based on that period. The law is clear, she does not. Parents choose to have children. Children do not choose to be born. The duty flows in one direction." Judge Morrison looked directly at my parents. "What concerns me most is the apparent motivation. The defendant worked 2 jobs from age 15, put herself through college while working full-time, saved aggressively, and sacrificed to purchase her home. Rather than celebrating this achievement, the plaintiffs filed suit within weeks of the purchase to benefit the younger daughter, who has received significantly more support and demonstrated less financial responsibility." Vanessa's face went pale. My mother cried again, but this time with panic, not performance. The evidence shows the defendant purchased her home entirely with her own earned and saved funds. There is no legal basis for the claim of an implied contract or owed compensation. Furthermore, the timing and motivation of this lawsuit appear to be designed not to recover genuine losses, but to coerce the defendant into supporting her adult sister indefinitely. Judge Morrison picked up her gavel. The case is dismissed with prejudice. The defendant owes nothing to the plaintiffs. Legal costs are awarded to the defendant. The plaintiffs must reimburse her attorney fees and court costs within 60 days. The gavel struck sharply, echoing across the courtroom. I froze, my mind struggling to grasp what had just occurred. Beth touched my arm lightly. We had won. It was finally over. My parents' attorney was already collecting his papers, his face professionally neutral but his movements tight with restrained frustration. My father stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. My mother continued crying, but her gaze toward me was a mixture of shock and possibly anger. I couldn't be certain. Vanessa rose abruptly and exited the courtroom, her heels clicking sharply on the tile floor. The sound seemed to break the tension. People began gathering their belongings, preparing to leave. My parents approached, their attorney following closely behind. For a moment, I wondered if they would apologize or acknowledge their actions, perhaps show some recognition for attempting to take the one thing I had worked my entire adult life to achieve. Instead, my father said, "You've destroyed this family." The statement was so absurd it almost made me laugh. I destroyed the family? You sued me for buying a house with my own money. You refused to help your sister, my mother added, dabbing at her tears. You prioritized property over family. I prioritized myself, I corrected. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. And you couldn't accept that. We raised you better than this, my father insisted. You raised me to be independent and self-reliant, I replied. That's exactly what I am. You just didn't like it when I succeeded without needing you. Beth stepped forward. This conversation is over. Please direct any further communication through my office. Without another word, my parents left. Their attorney paused just long enough to hand Beth a business card, likely regarding coordination of legal fees, before following them out. I remained in the empty courtroom, listening to the silence. Beth was taking notes, probably documenting details for her records. A bailiff was straightening chairs, performing ordinary tasks in a space where my future had just been decided. Are you okay? Beth asked, looking up from her notepad. I don't know yet. Ask me tomorrow, she smiled. Fair enough. You should know that was one of the clearest dismissals I've seen. Judge Morrison was not impressed with your parents' case? What about the attorney fees? I asked. That's unusual, she explained. She wanted to send a message. Manipulative lawsuits have consequences. Your parents will need to pay roughly $8,000 in legal fees. Not a fortune, but enough to sting. And it's public record. Anyone searching their names will see they sued their daughter and lost. We stepped outside into the bright Phoenix afternoon. The heat hit like a wall after the courthouse's air conditioning. I squinted against the sunlight, fumbling in my purse for sunglasses. Go home, Beth advised. Take the rest of the day to process this. Tomorrow, you can start moving forward. I drove through familiar streets, passing the warehouse where I worked, the grocery store of my teenage years, and the community college campus where I balanced classes and jobs. Each landmark marked the journey leading to this moment. Pulling into my driveway, I sat in the car, staring at my house, legally, undeniably, permanently mine. No one could take it from me. No lawsuit, manipulation, or family obligation could erase what I had earned. Inside, I stood in the living room, the same space where I had stood on moving day, feeling accomplishment. Now that feeling was mixed with relief, exhaustion, and an odd sense of grief. I had won, but winning meant accepting that my parents had genuinely tried to take my house, that my sister had supported their attempt, and that the family I once hoped would acknowledge my achievements had instead tried to punish me for them. My phone buzzed. Patricia, how did it go? I called. She answered immediately. Tell me everything, she demanded. I recounted the trial, the testimonies, and Judge Morrison's dismissal. Patricia whooped so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. I knew it! I told you they had no case. God, I wish I could have seen their faces. My mother cried most of the time. My father looked like he wanted to break something. Vanessa left before the judge even finished speaking. Good, they should be embarrassed. Suing your own daughter for buying a house? That's insane. We talked another 20 minutes. She offered to bring dinner, but I declined. I needed time alone to process everything. After hanging up, I wandered through my house, reacquainting myself with spaces that had nearly been taken from me. The guest bedroom with a home office, the master bedroom that had sold me on the house, the kitchen with outdated countertops I planned to replace, and the backyard with its small patio and desert landscaping. Mine. All mine. Over the following weeks, life gradually settled into a new normal. Work continued with its usual routine of shipments and inventory management. I had dinner with Patricia twice, once at a Thai restaurant and another time at her apartment, where she prepared an elaborate pasta dish and we drank a little too much wine. I fixed the kitchen faucet that had been dripping since I moved in. I planted native flowers in the backyard, watching them struggle briefly before adjusting to the desert heat. My parents did not reach out. Neither did Vanessa. The silence was complete, as if I had been erased from their lives the moment the judge dismissed their case. Occasionally, I wondered what they were telling people about me, likely a version of events casting me as the villain, the ungrateful daughter who abandoned family for personal ambition. Then, 6 weeks after the trial, Dennis, my former grocery store manager, called. I hadn't spoken to him since the trial, though we sometimes exchanged brief pleasantries around town. "Rona, I thought you should know something," he said after our greetings. "I ran into your mother at the shopping center yesterday. She was with a friend and I overheard them talking about you." My stomach tightened. What had she said? Probably that I was the one who sued the family, caused trouble, and refused to help my struggling sister. I closed my eyes. Of course, rewrite history, shift blame, play the victim. I approached her and corrected the story, telling her friend the truth, that she and my father had filed the lawsuit. I testified at the trial, and the judge dismissed their case and awarded me legal fees. My mother tried to argue, but I simply repeated the facts until she left. "Thank you for that," Dennis continued. "She's telling people you're mentally unstable, that you've always had problems, and that they tried to help you but you refused treatment. I thought you should know she's spreading this narrative." After we hung up, I sat on the couch, a familiar anger rising in my chest. It wasn't enough that they had tried to take my house. They were now trying to take my reputation, spreading lies to anyone who would listen, framing themselves as concerned parents, rather than the manipulative people who attempted to steal from their child through legal intimidation. I called Beth. "Can they do this? Lie about me publicly? Technically, you could pursue a defamation case if you prove damages. But honestly, let them talk. Anyone who matters already knows the truth. The court record is public. Their lawsuit and its dismissal are documented facts. Let them tell their lies. Time will reveal the truth." She was probably right. Yet the anger lingered. I had worked so hard, sacrificed so much, and my parents were trying to destroy my character because they had failed to undermine my independence. Then, a week later, something unexpected happened. I received a message through social media from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years, a woman named Kelly who lived in Tucson. We had been close as children but grew apart as adults. "Hey, Rona, I heard about the lawsuit involving your parents. I'm not surprised. They tried something similar with my brother years ago. He borrowed money from them for car repairs, and they held it against him for 5 years, demanding all sorts of additional compensation. We eventually cut them off completely. I'm sorry you had to go through that. You deserved better." I stared at her message. My parents had done this to other family members before. I replied, asking for more details. Kelly called that evening. She explained it was a pattern. They offer help, then use it to control. When someone resists, they retaliate. My brother eventually told them to keep the money and stop calling. They responded by portraying him as unstable and ungrateful. Sound familiar? Very familiar. Most people eventually realize it. My parents did. Other relatives did. Your parents have burned many bridges over the years. That's why we see them only on major holidays, and even then, people keep their distance. We spoke for over an hour. Kelly shared family dynamics I had been too young to notice. Instances where my parents gave help only to demand excessive repayment later. Arguments at gatherings where they played the victim despite being the aggressor, and a pattern of manipulation spanning decades. "Why didn't anyone warn me?" I asked. "Would you have believed us?" "You were living it. You had to see it for yourself," she said. "But now that you have, you'll notice others avoiding them. Watch who keeps conversations brief at the next family event." I thought back to last Thanksgiving. Several relatives had made polite small talk with my parents before quickly moving on. At the time, I assumed they were busy. Now I realized they might have been limiting exposure intentionally. The next major family event was my grandmother's 85th birthday in late November, held at a restaurant in Scottsdale and organized by my Aunt Julia. I almost skipped it, expecting discomfort because of the lawsuit, but I wanted to see my grandmother, who had always been kind in her reserved way. I arrived late, hoping to minimize interaction with my parents. The private dining room was full. My grandmother sat at the head of a long table surrounded by 4 generations. My parents were there with Vanessa. When they saw me, my mother's expression tightened, my father looked away, and Vanessa stared with open hostility. I hugged my grandmother and offered birthday wishes. She patted my hand briefly, distracted by a great-grandchild climbing onto her lap. I found a seat at the far end between Kelly and my cousin Jason. "Brave of you to come," Kelly murmured. "It's my grandmother's birthday." "I'm not letting them drive me away," I replied. During dinner, I was acutely aware of my parents. They focused on Vanessa, laughing at her jokes and including her in every conversation, clearly signaling, "See what you're missing by refusing to comply?" But I also noticed Kelly's point. Other relatives kept interactions with my parents brief and superficial. Uncle Tom, usually friendly with my father, barely spoke to him. Aunt Julia remained polite but distant. Even my grandmother seemed less engaged when my mother tried to monopolize her attention. After dinner, while people had coffee and cake, Aunt Julia approached me quietly. "I heard about the lawsuit. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Your uncle and I considered reaching out, but we weren't sure if you wanted family involvement. It's over now." The judge dismissed it. "Good," I replied. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Your parents are challenging. They mean well, but they struggle with respecting boundaries. A diplomatic way of saying they were controlling and manipulative." I appreciated the thought, even with softened language. As the party ended, my mother confronted me near the coat check. "I hope you're happy. You've turned the family against us. I didn't turn anyone against you. I just stopped letting you control me. We tried to help you understand family responsibility. You tried to steal my house and give it to Vanessa. That's not responsibility. That's exploitation. Everything has always come easy for you," my mother continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "You got good grades effortlessly. Jobs came to you without struggle. You saved money without trying. You don't understand what it's like for people who need more support." The revisionist version of my life was astounding. "Easy," she said. "Mom, I worked 80 hours a week for years. I ate ramen for dinner just to save an extra $20. I drove a car that constantly broke down because I couldn't afford better. Nothing about that was easy. I simply didn't give up when things got hard." "You're so judgmental," she snapped. "Always looking down on anyone who doesn't meet your impossible standards." My standards are simple. Work for what you want and don't expect others to fund your lifestyle. "That's not impossible." "That's basic adulthood." My father stepped in, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We should go." There's no point arguing. They left without saying goodbye, Vanessa trailing behind. The remaining family members watched them depart with expressions ranging from relief to resignation. Kelly stood beside me. "See what I mean? They burn bridges and then wonder why people avoid them." In the following months, the distance between my parents and me became permanent. I heard through relatives that they continued telling their version of events, but the public court record ensured their narrative gained little traction. Vanessa posted vague social media comments about betrayal and family loyalty. I blocked her and moved on. I realized some relationships aren't worth saving. Meanwhile, my life improved. I received a promotion and a raise, allowing me to start saving for the kitchen renovation I wanted. I adopted a rescue dog, Copper, who loved the backyard and slept on my bed every night. Patricia and I took a weekend trip to Sedona, my first vacation in 5 years. The house became more than an accomplishment. It became a home. I painted the guest bedroom warm sage green, hung photographs and artwork, and learned to cook complex meals instead of relying on cheap, quick options. I hosted a small dinner party for Patricia, Judith, and a few coworkers, feeling genuine pride in the space I had created. Occasionally, I thought about my parents and sister, wondering if they had learned anything from the lawsuit or if they continued their patterns of enabling and manipulation. I wondered whether Vanessa would ever become independent or continue depending on others. Mostly, though, I focused on my own future. By age 29, I had a house I owned, a job I excelled at, and friendships that supported me. I had learned to set and enforce boundaries, and that family was not an excuse for exploitation. Hard work and success didn't make me selfish. It made me capable. Nearly a year after the trial, I sat on my back patio with copper at my feet. The desert sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. My house stood firm, no longer threatened by lawsuits or family manipulation. I had paid down the mortgage slightly ahead of schedule, and the kitchen renovation was planned for spring. I thought of the 15-year-old girl who worked her first fast food job dreaming of independence. She would be proud, not just of the house, the job, or financial stability, but of the strength to stand up to those who tried to take what I had earned. My parents never apologized. Within 6 months of the trial, their relationships with most extended family members had deteriorated further. Relatives stopped inviting them to events after another wedding incident, where they criticized expenses and made pointed remarks about those who refused to help them. My Uncle Tom eventually told them directly that their manipulative behavior had exhausted everyone's patience. They withdrew from family gatherings entirely, isolating themselves. Vanessa moved in with a boyfriend who lasted 4 months before realizing she expected him to fund her entire lifestyle. Afterward, she returned to live with my parents, still searching for support without contributing. Together, the three of them existed in a bubble of resentment, convinced the world was against them while never acknowledging that their troubles were self-created. I watched the sunset and realized I was exactly where I was meant to be, not because revenge tasted sweet, though the judge's dismissal had been satisfying, but because I had protected what I had built through years of effort. The lawsuit had been their last attempt to take from me, and I refused. That refusal cost me a family, but it preserved something far more important: my self-respect, independence, and the future I had worked for. Some battles choose you. When they do, the only option is to fight with everything you have. Winning doesn't just mean keeping what's yours. It means proving to yourself that you're strong enough to defend it.